Music has the power to evoke emotions and memories. It can be used to improve our mood, reduce anxiety, enhance communication. As we are caring for our loved ones, we are always looking for tools and resources that create meaningful connections. Today, my guest is Alexis Baker. She is the founder, owner, and board certified music therapist for Bridgetown Music Therapy. She has a heart for music, and her passion has remained working with older adults, specifically with people living with dementia and Alzheimer's. Alexis created Singing at Home, and it is Bridgetown Music Therapy's online music engagement platform. It is designed for older adults living with dementia and their caregivers. Today, we talk about how incorporating music into the day-to-day of caregiving is so important, the specific benefits that we see while we incorporate music, how do we determine those musical preferences, and how do we overcome maybe our own insecurities in facilitating music into our caregiving. Music has the power to improve mood, reduce anxiety, enhance communication. We look at how do we promote those intergenerational connections and tips on how we can use music at home with our aging loved one. Here is my interview with Alexis Baker. Hi, Alexis. How are you? I'm so glad you're here.
Hello, it's so good to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this. Music plays such an important part in my life, and I know in the lives of older adults. And I know you have such a personal connection to why you do what you do. So please share
Yes.
with us your story and why that is and what brought you to wanting to share that gift with everybody else.
Yes. So I think music plays a part in everyone's life in some way or another. We all connect or relate to music. So for me, it started as a kid when I was 8 years old. I started taking piano lessons and grew up in a very quote unquote musical family.
Mm-hmm.
We all played instruments.
So when you got
And
together, did you just all play your different instruments?
when we were older, yeah,
Okay,
like starting
yes.
in middle school and high school, we did have kind of a family band
Mm.
with my siblings and I. So music was always around in our house. I switched to taking guitar lessons when I was 10. So I've been playing guitar for quite a while. And then in high school started like finding my voice.
Mm.
I didn't have a lot of confidence in regard to singing, but as I just started singing and pushing myself, I found my voice and gained that confidence. And then in high school, as I was looking at options as to what I might pursue career-wise, what I might go to school for, I discovered music therapy. And it just kind of clicked with me. I liked the sound of it. I wanted to do something in the helping profession, but I also loved music so much and I wanted to do something that involved music, but not necessarily go the traditional routes of teaching or music entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to school for music therapy, got a bachelor's degree in music therapy, and that's how I started on this path of music therapy. And along the way, also while I was in school, had one of my grandmothers had Alzheimer's disease.
Mm.
So I learned more about that and how powerful music was with her, and have always kind of loved older adults, just interacting with them, hearing their life stories. They're just full of wisdom. I was pretty broad in my practice of music therapy when I just was getting started. I was working with children, adults with disabilities, older adults, mental health. And then I decided I really want to specialize in and focus in on one population,
Mm-hmm.
one age group, and the music that goes more along with that. So back in about 2016, I started my own music therapy practice with the focus of older adults and specializing in dementia care. So that's how I got to where I am
Yeah.
today, and some bumps along the way with COVID, and I can share more
Mm-hmm.
about that. But yeah, I have always kind of had a heart for older adults. And then you bring the music aspect into it, and there's just such a strong connection.
There is. yes. And your heart for them really shows and shines through. I know any interaction we've had or conversation, that's just so evident. And when we're working with companies and people, it's so important that there's that heart behind what we do, because it really makes a difference when we're interacting with people. So, where did you discover that you could really incorporate music into the day-to-day life? And part of our conversation today is, how do we bring caregivers into that interaction? So really thinking of music therapy as the bridge between how we caregive, connecting with our older adults, those specifically with dementia. When did that start for you to want to incorporate those two worlds together?
Good question. Music therapy is one thing. So you can have a caregiver and their loved one or care recipient who work with a music therapist. They hire a music therapist. That person might come to their home and provide a session once or twice a week. And a lot can be learned from that time. I know several caregivers who've used music therapy in that way and have told me that they've learned so much from just that 1 hour session, from the time of interaction and connection and just different techniques and tools that can be learned from that. And then there's music in general, using music as therapy. So not specifically music therapy, but using music in all its different ways, integrating it into the day-to-day. I like to say that music is such a powerful tool for connection, and it's a natural motivator. It's a mood shifter. So using music and the various aspects of music to benefit you and your loved one. And I've seen this play out in so many different ways. It's such a wonderful thing and so beautiful to witness and be a part of.
I'm so glad you bring that up. You really started to reference the difference between music therapy and then using music as a tool and more entertainment side. So for people listening that maybe this is a new term for them, what is music therapy and how does it differ from putting on music or, in the ways that we interact with music?
Yes, so that's something a lot of people wonder is they hear that term music therapy and they're not completely sure what it means. A lot of people, their mind goes to like depression, like, oh, it helps ease depression. It is a broad definition because it can be used in so many different ways and it can be used with every age, every type of population. So from birth through death, you have music therapy even in the neonatal intensive care unit with preemies, and then through hospice, end of life care. So every age. But what makes music therapy is that it's clinical and evidence-based. So using interventions that have been proven to work to promote growth or benefit of some type. And it involves the use of a therapeutic relationship with a certified music therapist. So that's kind of the formal definition. But then we also have music education, music entertainment, and we all know what those two are. Right. And then I like to add another one. So there's kind of 4 different categories: music therapy, music education, music entertainment, and then music for engagement. And that's kind of the direction I've gone with my music therapy background, my education and training and all that, is empowering caregivers to use music for engagement with their care recipient or their loved one.
You referenced that it can be used in many different situations. So some examples of what are those even diagnoses or health conditions that are really appropriate for music therapy? If someone's trying to find ways to work with their loved one, how can we use that to encourage growth and, like you said, that evidence-based practice?
Yeah, so in the aging population, it can be used with pretty much any diagnosis or disability or disease. I mean, dementia is very common. You have Parkinson's disease, you have cancer, whatever the diagnosis, music can be used. There's lots of different ways. Singing, for example, dance, listening to music, playing an instrument, using music as a relaxation tool, even songwriting and capturing or recording music.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the different music-based activities we can use. Times of day where you just have downtime or time to fill.
Right. Yes.
As you can use it as a time filler. You can use it as a redirection tool when there's some behavioral issues going on. You can use it in moments of transition. I was talking with a caregiver the other day about bath or shower time and how that can be such a difficult
Oh, yes.
transition. But she had a song that the same song each time that she would put on for her mom, and it just helped smooth out that transition.
It's so helpful when we know what our options are, what we can have that's going to work. When I was working in a community, I was specifically for the first part of my career working on a transitional care unit. So people would come and have therapy, and we had a music therapist on staff. And one thing that I witnessed that really at the time blew my mind because it was new for me to see, this gentleman had Parkinson's and he had a really hard time walking and getting stuck on his steps. And she pulled out a drum and they sang a song that had the beat of the drum. And with
Yes.
that beat, he was able to find his steps and do that. And it was just so cool to see the power of that really, it play out and be able to witness it in action.
That's a wonderful example. There are so many examples like that. One in particular with Alzheimer's and dementia, a lot of times towards the later stages, they lose the ability to speak, but music can actually help them find their voice again, whether it's just like vocalizing, they may not be forming words, but just like vocalizing. Or I've witnessed this so many times with dementia, with stroke patients. They are able to sing even though they've lost the ability to speak. So even using music for self-expression, for playfulness, for actually meeting goals that they might have in their care plan, like physical movement, moving a certain number of minutes per day. And you can use music as a natural motivator for movement,
Right.
because there's rhythm and a beat, and our bodies just naturally want to move to that.
Tap our toes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Clap our hands, sway our hips. I'm trying to think of what I do when I when I listen to music. Yes. Oh, and we're also going to be looking at how do we incorporate the music into our day-to-day of caregiving. As loved ones, when we're caring for our loved ones, we have a lot that goes into that day and it can be overwhelming, but we want to create these moments of joy, and I think incorporating that's the perfect place to do that. But first, before we kind of dive into like how we actually really do that, what are some of the benefits that you've seen when we incorporate that music into our caregiving, not only for the care recipient, but for the caregiver?
Great question. There are so many benefits to music. I think one of the biggest ones is that joy piece. Like it can just bring joy. And with that comes stress relief, anxiety relief. Music can boost the immune system. It can improve sleep. It can help relaxation, leading to better sleep. Music, I like to say music is like a vitamin. So a little bit every day does wonders to nourish the mind, body, and soul. And so it's that intentional use of music for a purpose. And that can be so many different things. It depends on each person's individual needs, preferences, all of that. But in general, music helps get the body moving, get the brain engaged, get us interacting with each other. It's a wonderful tool for connection. I think I already said that, but that's
So
kind of
good.
the
We gotta
I
yes.
eat over and over is connection.
Right, it is. You talk about the preferences. How do we discover what those music preferences are? I mean, is it as simple as,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
They're
probably
different.
asking the question, but if we have to discover that maybe for a loved one that isn't able to communicate that.
Yes. So preferences are different for everyone. And the best place to start is just to ask. So with clients, if it's my first time meeting them or first or second time, I'm just getting to know them, finding out what type of music they like. And I'll just ask, like, what kind of music do you enjoy? What do you like listening to? And they'll usually give a broad genre, but that's a good place to start, is finding like either a time period it's from or a genre or particular style. But then you want to get more specific if possible and find out specific singer names, band names, song titles, all of that. And you just got to be a detective sometimes and might need to do a little digging, or you could ask around family members, friends, just see what you can find about their musical preferences.
In that role of caregiver with someone with dementia, we are being detectives all the time, and
Yes.
in many different ways. So looking at how we use music and incorporating that in our caregiving and in the day-to-day at home, share with us what we can do. Like, how do we do that and how do we do that well?
Yeah, well, a lot of people are intimidated by music. There's that hesitancy, like they may think, "Oh, I'm not a musician. I'm not a singer." So, part of it is just getting over that initial hurdle of
Mhm.
it might just be in your head. Like there's
Mhm.
there's a barrier there. And so a few tips is to keep it simple. Like music doesn't need to be a performance. Music is meant to be fun. So
Mhm.
have fun with it. And so give yourself permission to have fun with it, to not worry about how you might sound or how it might come out. I always tell people we all have a voice, so use it. Like we all have a voice to sing. Try out that singing voice. Singing is a great starting point
Yes.
because it doesn't require anything other than
Mhm.
just your voice, and that's your
Mhm.
built-in instrument. So
When you were sharing about that, I recently had left a voice memo with a friend and I was singing. I knew that it wasn't good and that's okay. But then I was
yeah,
laughing so hard at the end, at the end of the message. And guess what? It brought this laughter and humor to our day because we were laughing about how we weren't singing amazing, but it was the conduit that brought humor. So I think if people are worried about, like you said, it's not a performance. We have a voice, we can sing and laugh about it.
I
you
love
know?
that.
Mhm.
Exactly. That's the idea. That's the goal.
Mhm.
So to set yourself up for success is to have your go-tos. Like once you begin finding out what type of music to use, what their preferences are, have a go-to playlist of songs that you can sing along with. Instruments are another really fun thing in music, and instruments are often where people get intimidated, and it's like, well, I don't play an
Mm.
instrument. I'm not a musician. But you have built-in abilities that you might not even know you have. We all have our own rhythm. So you
Right.
can grab a rhythmic instrument or even make one. So maracas, tambourines, instruments that you can just pick up and play. There's not really any instruction needed. And then you can make one easily at home too with just a jar or container that has a tight lid, and then add some beans or rice and you're good to go. You've got a
Yeah.
rhythmic shaker.
Right.
And rhythm is so fun to add to music, and it's really great for the brain and body. You get that physical movement built in with playing an instrument. Play in all types of directions. I always prompt my clients, like, we can play above the head, low, side to side. And with side to side, you get that crossing midline, which is
Oh.
just for the brain, like with
Mhm.
brain function and organization. So there's so many built-in benefits like that to using music.
And with your program, which we'll also talk about, that's incorporated in there.
Yep, and that would be a go-to
Mhm.
tool as well, as having a program or service. There's so many out there. Mine is just one of many, but
Mhm.
yeah, having a go-to program or service like that that you can access.
Yeah, so I'm excited for you to share more about that after we chat about the ways we can use music at home. So I know there are more ways. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So, one more very important thing is not to shy away from trying something just because you've never done it.
Mm,
So, something is always worth trying. And I know that's so important in caregiving is to try lots of different things because you never know what might work. So, in music, it's important to try things, even though it may be out of your comfort zone, but you
yeah.
might find something that works really well with your loved one or care recipient. It could help them get to sleep better. It could help them get through that, if they have dementia, that sundowning period, or it can help them get that physical movement they need. I'm sure there's a way that music could help meet it in some way.
When I would visit that one on one, we put on some relaxing music and then would do hand massage, which, if you've
Oh,
ever had a hand massage, oh my gosh, it's like the best thing ever.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and just incorporating that. You're right. We can use music and play and relaxation. And I think you mentioned dancing before. We've got that
Yeah.
rhythm in our bodies where we just want to move. So looking at all of that and knowing that not to overlook it, that it's very important.
Yeah, or it could be dance or gentle stretching
Mm,
to music or deep
mhm,
breathing to music. I know you mentioned an experience with using music in care setting with the hand
mhm,
massages. I remember one time we were visiting my grandmother. She lived across the country, so we didn't see her very often. But
mm,
my brother is an amazing pianist, and he just sat down and the care community started playing. And it was just this like sense of calm, like that came over
mm.
her and the other residents that happened to be there. And I've witnessed that so much in being a music therapist, but it was really powerful, like seeing my own grandmother being
Yeah.
affected and positively impacted in that
Mhm,
way
mhm.
with music.
I know there's a woman that I would visit that lived in a memory care, and her family was traveling. And so I would go and hang out, which I loved. And the way that we would spend time together and bond was she loved music. And so I would have my phone and I created a playlist was like all of her favorite music. And we would walk and dance in the hallway and just walk
Oh,
around, and she would sing and we would laugh, and it was the way that we could connect because other forms of communication were a little more challenging, and
yep.
she didn't remember who I was, but she knew that we would dance. We would listen to music together.
I love that. Yes, I've had so many clients who don't remember who I am week to week,
Mm,
but they know me through the music and we connect through the music.
yeah.
And it's such a beautiful thing.
It is. And you go back to that connection earlier when you were like, it's connection, and it's so true. And when we don't maybe know how to spend time with our loved one at home or know how to connect to them,
Mhm.
sometimes that can be intimidating if we're visiting and we might not be their primary person that spends time with them. Music is the great connector that we can
Yes,
sit together and do something and find that commonality, I believe. So, another way to incorporate that.
absolutely. Yes, I always think back, we've kind of lost that in our present
Mm,
day society, but I always think back to like hearing stories about maybe the earlier 1900s
yes.
where families would gather around after dinner and
Mm,
gather around the piano or around another instrument and make music together as a
yes.
family. And we've really lost that kind of experience,
Yes, that's so true. They
but
would,
it's
that
so
would be,
powerful.
yeah. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up because that is, I'm sure, too, how many of the older adults in our lives grew up spending time with people that they
Mhm.
love. Or there was even more of even around, like the 40s and 50s, that was the socialization is going to places where there was a band or you were dancing or all of that. That's how people would hang out together. And we've lost that as well. I mean, we can still
Yeah,
find music venues, obviously. It's like one of my favorite hobbies. It's just not as common. You gotta like work a little harder to find
exactly.
where those places
Yeah.
are.
Well, going to a concert together is a great
Mm-hmm.
example of a shared musical experience. And
Mm.
that's a wonderful thing if you're able to go to a concert together
Mm-hmm.
with family member you're caring for or whatever the scenario. We talk about active experiences versus receptive
Mm.
experiences in music therapy, and going to a concert is more of a receptive experience.
Mm-hmm.
Although
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you want to sing or dance along to the
Yeah.
live music, but it's the power of connection through a shared experience
Yes.
that you're
Yes.
both there experiencing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can talk about it later and it becomes a memory.
How have you seen music being effective bringing the whole family together? Kids, people of all different ages. What are you seeing in that way?
Oh, good question. Music is once again so powerful in bringing people together, especially people of different ages, because as you had mentioned earlier, you may not be the primary caregiver, but you're visiting and you're wanting something to do with them. That's a challenge, is like, what do I do with my loved one who's declining and I don't know how to interact with them? Well, music. So
Mm-hmm.
I've had experience within intergenerational settings, and it's such a beautiful thing. It was a day center, a day program for people with dementia and other disabilities. That was one side of the building, and they called them the grandparents. And then
Mm.
the other side of the building was the kids like 5 and under, and it was a daycare for kids. And then in the center of the building they would bring them together a couple times a day for intergenerational activities, and I got to lead music sessions with both ages. And there's just some really beautiful interactions that take place naturally through music, like playing instruments together. There's this instrument called a pentatonic xylophone, and it's really easy to play, really fun to play. And I would have that the grandparent would be holding a mallet and a kid would be holding a mallet, and they would play it together
Oh,
and do a little duet, and I'd
yeah.
be accompanying on guitar. So just like, I
So
mean, that's
fun.
more of a formal music therapy setting, but going back to our ideas of singing, dance, playing an instrument, listening to music together, capturing, recording music,
Yeah. Yeah.
recording your loved one's voice so you can listen back on it later and share it with the family later. Get creative.
Yeah.
Have fun
Sky's
with
the
it.
limit. Have fun.
Yay.
Yes. We take ourselves too seriously and we don't need to.
Yep.
We don't need to. What are some resources, for caregivers that are like, "Oh, I want to have the skills and the knowledge and incorporate this and I just not really sure where to start."
Yes, because it can be a little intimidating, especially if you don't have a background in music. But there are some wonderful resources written by music therapists who have the knowledge and skills to equip others with how to incorporate music. One of them it's a book called Music, Memory, and Meaning, and
Mm.
it has a bunch of song ideas and then guidance on questions to ask, post song discussions, reminiscing, just really connecting through the music, prompted by music. That's a wonderful resource. There are several others out there.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. Thank you. So, another big, movement that's happening in our world is we're going to technology for a lot of different things. How is technology not only, is utilized, but has impacted the field of music therapy and, accessibility and effectiveness for older adults and caregivers? And you've got some really cool things to share with us about that.
Yeah, so technology pre-COVID had just been steadily increasing.
Mhm.
And then COVID happened and it just took off. Like we really were forced to turn to technology to continue our lives, to connect with each other. And COVID was horrible, horrible for so many people, for caregivers, older adults, very isolating. I see a lot of good came out of it technology wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are now so many programs available using technology that make it accessible for caregivers to access programs and services 24/7. So that's what happened with me and my business. I had been practicing music therapy in person in the Portland area. I had a couple of dozen care communities I was serving. So I would drive around to all my clients and provide music therapy sessions to the residents, mainly working with groups of residents. And then COVID began, and as an outside vendor, I was not allowed to go into the buildings anymore. So all of my work was cut off. And it was kind of a scramble after that. Like, what
What
am
do
I
I
going to do
do?
now?
Yeah.
So I tried a variety of things like outdoor music therapy over Zoom, music therapy over the phone, even like the audio only. But none of them really stuck. And then my business partner and I, who happens to be my husband, just started brainstorming, and he's trained as a professional videographer. So we decided to combine our skills and create an online program that's accessible 24/7. So it's essentially pre-recorded sessions. And I just took my years of experience interacting with dementia patients in person and put that into video format, and how I pace the sessions, how I interact with the camera, just the general flow. And we now have just over 300 videos in our library. So it's a video library with like a membership model. So when you become a member, you get access to all of them. And it's a variety of hour-long sessions, half-hour sessions, individual songs. We have just general music. We have themed sessions. It's all over. So
Good. And at
yeah.
our fingertips when we want that support and to be able to incorporate that in our day with our loved one. So cool.
Absolutely. And I think that's what kind of sets it apart, is that it's accessible 24/7, because scheduling can be a challenge for caregivers. Getting out of the house can be a challenge. There's the financial aspect.
Right.
Compared to formal music therapy sessions, it's very low cost.
Yeah.
Although I always encourage people, if they're able to access music therapy, do so. But our program is a great alternative.
Yeah. And our loved ones, especially with Alzheimer's, are up at all hours of the night, sometimes. And that is when we want to pull those tools and resources that can help us. Because, gosh, middle of the night, that's tough. So having it 24/7 is so helpful.
Yep. We say whether it's 2 p.m. or 2 a.m.
Yes, yes. This has been so fun. And where can we learn more? Where can we find out about your engagement platform and learn more about that?
So our main website is bridgetownmt.com. So Bridgetown Music Therapy. And that's where you can pretty much access everything. We have a program for care communities and group settings, and then we have a program for individuals at home. All of our contact info is there, our social media. So that's the hub,
Yeah,
Bridgetown Music Therapy.
perfect. We'll include that as well. Thank you, Alexis, for sharing. You have such a heart of helping and wanting to support people, and I just appreciate it so much. So thank you for sharing how music is meaningful, important to incorporate it every day. Lifts our endorphins, right? Serotonin, like all of those feel-good
Yep,
chemicals.
absolutely. Yes, I
Mhm.
always say music is powerful, music matters, and it makes a difference.
It
So
does.
thank you so much. This has been wonderful. And likewise with you, your passion and enthusiasm just shines from
Oh,
you,
thank
and
you.
so wonderful to connect with like-minded people.
I agree. I agree. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.